بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Your Excellency, Her Majesty's Ambassador to Kuwait, Mr. Michael Davenport, honored guest, esteemed colleagues, I am humbled and honored to have you here joining us in celebrating Gatehouse Financial Group's Gatehouse Capital's 20th anniversary and our anniversary at Gatehouse Financial Group, 5 years, and Gatehouse Banks' 10 years. You will hear a story, an interesting one that probably is in the movies, but you'll see how the story all began. We celebrate, again, Gatehouse Capital's 20 years, 10 years of Gatehouse Bank and 5 years of Gatehouse Financial Group. However, Gatehouse Capital did not start with that name. It started with a different name. It was called Global Securities House. It started all in 1998 in San Francisco. I was honored to join the Securities House company in 1997. And at that time, they were just going into the privatization sector. The government owned these companies, and the current shareholders became shareholders in 1997, and they had a strategy to change the company from a conventional investment company to a Sharia-compliant company. I was also given the task to find different managers all over the world to look into investing abroad. They invested in me and sent me out to the US in San Francisco for some training, but more importantly, they sponsored my master's degree. So that was their first investment as a company. So while I was doing my master's out in Los Angeles, California, we opened a relationship with a company called Merrill Lynch for a securities house, and we had a portfolio. But we also opened a relationship with Global Alliance. Global Alliance was founded by Nancy Tengler and Harry Georgiev, who were at ING. The significance of Global Alliance is very important because they acted as the screening advisor for the Sharia-compliant universe that we needed to get to for investment in the global equity market. Nancy Tengler was a value investor. She was a star. She was frequently quoted on CNBC. She wrote some books all about value investing. She comes from the Warren Buffett school of thought. And at that time, it was very interesting. It was the 98 to 2000 time was a period of the internet start, if you recall. And the internet, everything was great, and the growth, the dynamic change that was happening at that time. But it was also a irrational exuberance, as Warren Buffett, as Greenspan called it at that time, a bubble that was about to burst. I was also learning from Nancy a lot of her methodologies of investing, and that really built the foundation of what we have done over the years. I would get into debates with her. I would say, what you make in 1 year, I make in 10 days, because I had a personal investment, small trading internet stocks. But a funny story here, I would go to her and she'd say, yeah, this is all fake, this is not real. And she would tell me things. I said, why are you buying, for example, Coca-Cola rather than Pepsi-Cola? And she would tell me, go to the supermarket and see how many people would buy Coca-Cola, how many would buy Pepsi-Cola, and look at the other different things. So she taught me the fundamentals of investment in a way that I wasn't realizing that I was learning them, because at that time it was great. Everything looked great. Y2K was coming. We were all prepared for that, but nothing happened. I said, see, nothing happened. Everything is good. It's a new world. Then March 2001, we had the internet crash, if you recall, followed by a September 11th in 2001, and the equity markets flew, the internet bubble burst, but the fundamentals were built. Gatehouse, Global Securities House, was a joint venture between Global Alliance and the Securities House, and thus the name Global Securities House was born. We used their global, our Securities House. So what did I learn here? Is having people on the ground, understanding the market is very, very important. You get the feel of investors and psychology. Nancy, having a psychology major and background, really talked about the psychology of investors and how they think. These were important, fundamental, I would say, characteristics that built my character over the year and my strategy and philosophy over the years. In 2003, we moved to Kuwait, and the reason being is after the equity market bubble, we thought we would reconsider a different asset class, and we were talked about real estate at that time. Again, what we did as Global Securities House when we started Kuwait, very small, 300,000 KD paid up capital, investment advisory. Who were our clients? Two, Securities House and a fund that Securities House managed, Azad, a DR fund in real estate. We were given the task to go and find investment opportunities outside the region, namely the United States, the UK, and Europe were our focus. Very interesting times. In 2003, we started buying. The first purchase we did was in the UK. We established a fund with a partnership between ABC Banking Group and the Securities House and Credit Suisse. That was a fund of 4 properties. It did very, very well. But we started understanding the market in the UK. The UK market was very advanced in terms of Sharia-compliant leverage. However, in France, it didn't exist. One of our partners, Nancy and Harry Georgieff, he was French in Global Alliance. So we asked him, and we asked him, can you help us in finding Islamic capital for and debt for equity investing in France? And it didn't exist. So we went about with our lawyers and expertise and really found an alternative. And the alternative was Credit Buy, which was a master lease program. So the story here is that we were building connection, we were building expertise, we were building relationships with the different lawyers. And we purchased an asset in France. Again, all for the Securities House and related entities. The US, this is where I think a big one and one of my favorite deals and really put us on the table. The Transpoint building. The Transpoint building was the headquarters of the US Coast Guard. We bought it in 2004, January of 2004. Historically, it was owned by one group for 30 years. The government was about to leave, but they didn't make a decision, and we understood some more fundamentals. What were these fundamentals? To get approval, the government needs to get Congress approval, Senate approval, so there is going to be a time lag. And for them to get to that level, we took the risk that they will stay, and they will stay for a longer time. But more importantly, what we said we would do is create some value. We created value by hiring one of the best property managers in the world, Tishman Speyer. Tishman Speyer is a property manager that is out of New York, Class A buildings, the Chrysler building, all these. But we brought them for a government building and really fixed it. The day we bought the purchase, we had a strategy just to give them a change. And that strategy was, we bought it on a Friday. The employees are going to come in on Monday. Let's do something so they can feel that change with the new building ownership. Simply saying, we made a nice big carpet emblem with the Coast Guard in the beginning. We made some paintings very quickly that weekend to clean up and clean the carpet. And we put chocolate to all the staff. They had about 5,000 employees in that building. Compliments of the new building ownership. Value creation. The next morning, things started moving along. We established a relationship with the property, with the commander that was in charge of the property. Building relationships and being on the ground is very important. 2 years later, we didn't extend the lease, we didn't do anything. The building was bought for 100 million by the Securities House, 33 million of equity and 67 of debt. We sold it in 2 years for 167 million. Securities House made a 33% IRR. Their 33 million became 100 million, and we paid that back the debt. The story being here is that is what we started to understand. We understood the fundamentals. We understood and we started building a relationship. More importantly, what happened in the United States is we met Art Street. Art Street, who continues to be our owner, representative, and partner, started the relationship in Transpoint. The value that was created from that relationship was key to the success and key to understanding. This was really the time that changed Global Securities House into something else. The fees that Global Securities House made from this deal were about 3 million KD from the performance, which created the capital, and we changed the capital of Global Securities House from 300,000 KD to 5 million KD, all still owned by the Securities House. What happened in 2007? So when Global Securities House increased its capital, now it had a experience, it wanted to go out to the market. The board of Securities House said, what are you going to buy next in real estate? I said, I'm not going to buy any more real estate because it's really late in the cycle, and in reality, a lot of things are expensive. So they said, you know what, we've heard that the British, that the Bank of England has given a license for an Islamic bank, and that was the first Islamic bank, the Islamic Bank of Britain at that time. And we, as Securities House, are looking for having a banking entity and investment. That was a study that we were doing in Bahrain with Ernst & Young. What happened is we took that study, we contacted Ernst & Young, and said, let's do it in the UK. So I fly into the UK with my team, and we started forming a formation committee. We did a beauty parade. We brought in advisors, we brought in the best legal advisors in the world just to set up and apply for the banking license. It was an easy process, but we started in a service office space right down in Lothbury Street. But more importantly, the advisor there that was doing it was a company that we created called GSH UK. Now, what is that? What is that telling you? That's telling you the theme that we continue to be. Whenever we start something, we create an entity with an advisor that represents us and only us on the ground. Now that is, I think, one of the key differentiators for Gatehouse over the years that has created a lot of this value. When we are in the market, we're not in the market just because somebody tells us what it is. We built the expertise in building that market. So in 2007, we started the application process. It's a lot of spending money. We were starting to hire people, recruiting the different executives, the systems and controls. It probably cost us £8 million to get to a license. And we got our license. At that time, we had called the company that was applying for the bank Gatehouse Capital. Gatehouse Capital never existed. In Kuwait, it was still Global Securities House. So when Gatehouse Capital changed to Gatehouse Bank, we liked that brand, and so we kept it. Gatehouse Bank receives its license on the 16th of April, 2008. Beautiful. What was the strategy? The strategy was, at that time, a capital markets bank. During that same period of time, West LB was very, very active in creating Islamic capital products for this region. We went to their team that was responsible, and we hired that team to come in along. They put this infrastructure together, they established relationships. We did do a couple of capital markets deals, but what happened in 2008? The global financial crisis. Capital markets fell, so the bank had to look at something else. The management was only focused on capital markets. What did I know? We were really in trouble. And the Securities House was the sole shareholder, paying $50 million of the capital when it received the license. In 2009, and that's a key date, September 2009, we made a very quick decision because we're one shareholder. We don't need to make a board and make decisions. We made a decision. We need to change management. I stepped in here as chairman. I was only a board member at that time. Stepped in as chairman, and what did I understand? Real estate. And this was the best time because it was a time of crisis. And in crisis, opportunities happen. In the beginning, when we started with the same idea of a fund, and we called it Elbait UK. We called it the UK Recovery Fund. But when we went out to the market, we didn't get traction. Why? Because people were scared. People didn't want to just commit to a blind pool fund. How do we recreate ourselves? I had the experience over these years at advising at Global Securities House, not just for the investments that we created, but also for investments for Securities House from other players. And our Capita, namely, we were very close with, because the Securities House had a shareholding in our Capita. So a lot of what I've seen in their investments and the training, and I was very, very close to them. How do we unfold things, and what went wrong? And what went wrong was really an investment that these institutions would take on their hand and do a markup and then sell back to the investors. So day one, you would be really down, and the recovery is going to be hard. So we wanted to take that all out. Instead of it being an investment with a markup, we said we need to be very, very transparent in everything. So that was what the period next. The strategy shift is what we call it. So we tried to create a fund, and the fund was going to attract these type of deals, but it didn't work. So we recreated ourselves, and we became agile to solve the distribution channel and what the clients wanted. Now it's very important here that we go out to the market, because Securities House is no longer had the liquidity to invest alongside us. They had their own issues with the global financial crisis. So we had to go and use our expertise going to the market. The fund didn't work, so how did we do it? I remembered Nancy's advice: simplicity, value, story. The story here is the most important thing. Remember the Coca-Cola Pepsi story? It's the story. So how do we build the story? We went and we attracted and we brought in a real estate team. We gave them exactly the investment origination characteristics that we were looking for, the appetite that we were looking for. So we said we wanted assets that had a good global credit and name. We wanted something that had a long lease. The market in 2009 was truly dislocated, and that was for me going to the toy store and buying toys. Everybody was concerned with different issues. How do we create a story? And I think the first story was a great one, Procter & Gamble. So when I went to the clients in Procter & Gamble, I had to raise, and who are the clients? We are the clients, because it was our family members, and we had to build trust again. So we specifically tailor-made from a bespoke manner that. Procter & Gamble, simple story, and this is where Gatehouse built its name and really product-based. Moving along, and each of these deals, Rolls-Royce, Intercontinental, had its own story. If I had an hour, I would love to tell you each story, but I don't have that, so I'm moving quicker than I would like to. But this was key. We built a story, we built a track record. Now Gatehouse became an advisor, and we closely became very aligned together. Global Securities House Kuwait and Gatehouse. At the same time, Global Securities House Kuwait renamed itself to GSH at this time, still not rebranded to Gatehouse Capital. We came along and we offered the student housing. I think we were the pioneers of that. Their simple story. Universities really needed stock. At that time, we were getting guarantees from the university on occupancy. Today, you don't find that. So you evolve during the sector. How do you create and how do you become agile, and how do you really become a pioneer in finding these different asset classes? Again, today we are harvesting the fruits of and the decisions and strategies we made back in 2012. We were the first to offer the US industrial. Today we created with a very close joint venture partner, Michael Brennan, and the Brennan Investment Group, more than $1 billion of investments in 7 different products. Fahed Boodai. حياك. بس اعطيتني بريك اشرب. So again, the timing was very important. Today we are reaping those benefits, and it's really based on strategy, based on fundamentals, all the fundamentals that we learned very early on. We are in an age of disruption, and all the changes that are happening for fundamental reasons. We look for these fundamental reasons. PRS. Everybody was talking about Mayfair. Let's invest in Mayfair. Let's do, the towers. Very interesting. Prince Charles, at that time, I was going into the subway, and they give you the newspapers. This really affected my thinking. And he said, we have a housing crisis. Instead of building beautiful tower blocks, let's do a solution for the housing. And that was really what opened up that idea. So we went about, because of our team on the ground, to look for developers that would find the same type of theme that we wanted. So we did go to developers that build homes. You'll hear more about it in the other presentations. They build homes to sell. We went and we said, okay, we would buy 20% of that lot, but at the cost plus 15%. They were selling the same home for $200,000 on average. On average, each cost of our homes that we bought was about $110,000. So how do we think? We think is what's the worst case scenario? And how do we manage that? I think having the expertise over the years and looking at the different cycles, that built really a lot of confidence in the way we think. It also built a lot of testing in terms of if things go wrong, how do we go about in solving them. So PRS, and you've learned and you'll hear more about it, has been a star, and Gatehouse was really the pioneer there and has created a global brand and presence. Today we are so happy in our BTR and PRS portfolios of 1,700 homes that we built. We're attracting capital not just from this region, we're attracting capital from the best of the best in the world, the best money managers coming to Gatehouse. Why? Because we have the experience and we built a platform. You'll hear much more about it in the next presentations. It was an honor to be at 10 Downing Street. We had David, the Prime Minister, Mr. David Cameron, when he spoke, he referred to Gatehouse's investment, our first one, in the housing. This really gives me the best pride. When Kuwait cashes in on a booming rental market, when they say Kuwait, that's Gatehouse, putting this together, but they're putting Gatehouse with that Kuwaiti flag and referring to what had the Kuwaiti had, what Kuwait investors or and theme of that coming into the. In 2014, we opened our Mayfair office. Mr. Boris Johnson, at that time, who was the Lord Mayor of the City of London, also helped give us the support of what we were doing in terms of the social element and the ethical element of the homes we're buying. That plays an important role, as excellently had to lead, but there's something very important here, and the UK government is a very big supporter to what we do. We also had an issue on a tax because of our structures. They changed it in less than a day for us because of our commitments of what we were trying to do. I think, this is what Gatehouse is all about, really building the networking, having the depth in relationships, having the depth of people in the market. I'm running slowly because they're giving me signs. I'm moving faster, so that's why I'm speaking faster. How does the present, and why was Gatehouse Financial Group established? In 2015, GFG was established to really put together the relationships that we are building between Gatehouse Capital and Gatehouse Bank, and really act as the and separate the capital and investment banking business from the retail banking business, and Charles will talk more about that. But how can we have a bank focus on a sustainable revenue stream? That's where we started looking into the lending. And Gatehouse Bank started the lending business back in 2013. In the beginning it was in commercial real estate finance, but now in the home finance, and you'll hear much more about that. The Challenger Bank, we wanted to find really a theme of what we wanted it to be. There was a lot of other players. How do we differentiate ourselves as players? Having that entrepreneurial spirit and the support that we've always had from our shareholders, we try to emerge and look at the trends, and hopefully the trends that we are on are ones that are changing the future in this age of disruption. The team and management that we brought in to take this strategy forward was one that created this, that pioneered this with Aldermore Bank, and you'll hear more a lot about that 10 years ago. So Gatehouse Financial Group today, where we stand today, is a bank in London acting as a lender of commercial real estate and home finance, but also through its real estate expertise, it offers real estate investment advisory service. The bank also has a platform that is very well respected in the global markets and in the PRS sector that Paul will speak more about. This, I think, is important to show how we are in terms of presence. We have a global presence in 3 different continents. In the UK itself, we have 3 offices, and we'll tell you why. We have our Mayfair presence, which is really the headquarters of the bank. We also have a Milton Keynes presence, which operates as the financing operational department, and we just opened also a presence in Winslow, which is close to Manchester. And the reason being is we also have a lot of exposure of a lot of our homes there. And the property management firm that we acquired is also based there. So having a close relationship is a theme of Gatehouse. So not allowing our trust or confidence to be to a third party. We'd like it to be with a company that we own or have an ownership stake in. I'm happy to say these are the different states that we had always, that we bought properties in, both in, this is the United States. I think we bought in 30 states out of 50 in the United States. That tells you that the experience and depth of the tax structuring, each state has its own, from the tax structuring and different permits that is allowed in each state. So that expertise, I think, is something that we are very, very proud of. The same applies for the UK. But what is it all about? What it's all about is in the 20 years that we've been in existence, we've done 4 billion of transactions, in 40 transactions. But it's the 40 transactions also are portfolios that have 8 or 10 or 15 different properties. The depth of experience that we've built over the years in the different asset classes, from student housing to the US government. We've had, I think tenants such as students in student housing. When you see that profile from treating the US government as a tenant, and then having the same expertise in treating student housing tenant, that tells you the expertise that we have built over the years in terms of administrating these things. Fact, 150 properties transacted. It's 40 products, but some of these products had multiple properties. So 150 over these years of properties that we either bought and sold. The dividends from our distributions to our investors has been more than 150 million. And this is just talking about the last 10 years when we started syndicating to the client base. Net gains on our sold investments have been 300 million. And our average return on equity for these investments has been 37.4%. Again, the tenant profile, US government. We have the state of Minnesota in our latest portfolio that we brought in, Procter & Gamble. And, again, the profile is deep. The future. You'll hear now from Charles and Paul, and you'll hear from the CEO of Gatehouse Capital. I tried as much as I can to speed it up. Thank you for being here. I thank you for all your support. I thank all the shareholders, all the investors for their trust and confidence in us. We look forward to continuing serving you, and we look forward to continuing really a phase of development, and you'll see that hopefully with Gatehouse Capital now emerging with some new software and reporting systems to our client base. You'll see that hopefully with what Gatehouse Bank is offering in the new age and the digital banking. Thank you all very much for coming here, and we'll speak again during the panel. Thank you.